The alliance that once stood as one of the most unshakable partnerships in modern geopolitical history is cracking. Not along the edges, not quietly in the back rooms of Capitol Hill, but loudly, visibly, and with the kind of force that reshapes the entire strategic landscape of the Middle East. What was once considered political suicide in Washington, questioning American support for Israel, has become a platform, a rallying cry, and in some corners, a vote-winning position. The ground has shifted beneath the feet of one of the world's most powerful military relationships, and the tremors are being felt all the way from Tel Aviv to the halls of the United States Senate. For decades, the architecture of American foreign policy rested on a foundation that both parties agreed not to touch. Support for Israel was not debated. It was inherited, maintained, and passed down from one administration to the next, like a standing order. Democrats and Republicans could disagree on taxes, healthcare, immigration, and the size of government. But on Israel, Washington spoke in one voice. That consensus is now gone. A clear majority of Americans now view Israel unfavorably, according to a new Pew Research Center survey. 60% of U.S. adults hold an unfavorable opinion of Israel, while just 37% express a favorable view. The figures mark a sharp deterioration from the previous year, when 53% of Americans viewed Israel negatively. These are not fringe numbers from opposition polling firms. These are mainstream peer-reviewed surveys, and they represent a fundamental transformation of American public opinion toward a country that has received more United States military and economic assistance than any other nation in the world. The collapse is most dramatic among Democrats. 8 in 10 Democrats and Democratic-leaning independents currently have an unfavorable view of Israel, up from 69% last year and 53% in 2022. But the story that is sending shockwaves through Israeli strategic circles is not what is happening on the political left. The story that matters, and the one that Benjamin Netanyahu built his entire political survival strategy around, is what is happening on the right. For years, Netanyahu made a calculated bet. He aligned Israel openly and aggressively with the Republican Party, with Donald Trump, and with the conservative evangelical base that had historically been among Israel's most reliable defenders in the United States. That bet is now showing signs of catastrophic failure. Among Republicans and Republican leaners, 41% now view Israel negatively, although a majority in that camp still retain a favorable opinion overall. But among younger Republicans aged 18 to 49, 57% now hold an unfavorable view of Israel, up from 50% the previous year. The generational dimension of this shift cannot be overstated. From 2024 to 2026, only 52% of young Republican and Republican-leaning voters sympathized more with Israelis, down from 69% in the 2018 to 2020 period before the Gaza war. The base that Netanyahu counted on to sustain American political support for Israel through whatever military operations his government chose to conduct is aging out of relevance, and the generation replacing it does not share those instincts. The disenchantment inside Republican ranks has found its loudest voices not in the halls of the Senate, but in the studios of conservative media. Tucker Carlson denounced the United States-Israeli strikes on Iran as absolutely disgusting and evil, casting them as a betrayal of the anti-interventionist instincts many in MAGA once claimed as core doctrine. Carlson, whose influence over the Republican base rivals and in some metrics exceeds that of elected officials, has become a central figure in a conservative realignment on Israel. His audiences are massive, his messaging is relentless, and the message is simple. American blood and American money should not be spent on foreign wars that serve other nations' interests. Former Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene, appearing on Carlson's show, shared her frustration with what she described as a consistent attempt to appease Israel in Congress. Since I've become a member of Congress since 2021, we have voted on 22 resolutions for Israel, she said. We never vote on resolutions proclaiming great things about America or defending certain Americans. Greene went further than congressional frustration. She accused some politicians and commentators of being MAGA, or Make Israel Great Again, a term that conservative critics of Trump have used when taking shots at their rivals within the MAGA movement. The term is a weapon forged from the movement's own language, turning America First into a direct indictment of unconditional pro-Israel policy. Greene warned that involvement in Iran is going to fracture the MAGA movement. For decades, we've watched our men and women in uniform go all over the world and fight in wars that most Americans don't think our country should have been in, she said. Americans are very sick and tired of that. These are not the words of a fringe isolationist. These are the words of a congresswoman who was once one of the most visible defenders of Donald Trump, a figure whose closeness to the president made her voice carry weight beyond her own constituency. The list of Republican-aligned defections includes Tucker Carlson, Megyn Kelly, former Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene, Joe Rogan, Joe Kent, Candace Owens, and Alex Jones. These are not Democrats. These are the faces and voices of the movement that delivered the White House back to Donald Trump in 2024. Their departure from the consensus position on Israel represents a structural shift, not a momentary disagreement. The polling data reinforces what the commentary class is saying. 56% of voters believe the war against Iran benefits Israel more than it benefits America, while just 29% say America benefits more. 53% of voters disapprove of Trump's strikes against Iran. 43% of voters say they are less likely to support Republicans in 2026 as a result of Trump's war, while 31% say they are more likely. The Iran conflict has accelerated what Gaza began. It has taken a polling trend and transformed it into an electoral threat, one that Republican strategists are watching with growing alarm as the 2026 midterms approach. Even senior Republican figures who have historically been among Israel's most dependable defenders in Washington are recalibrating their positions. When Netanyahu signaled a desire to taper off Israeli dependence on American military aid over the next decade, Republican Senator Lindsey Graham, a staunch Israel supporter and close ally of Trump, said on social media that we need not wait 10 years to begin scaling back military aid to Israel, adding that billions in taxpayer dollars saved should be redirected into the United States military. Graham's statement was read by observers in Tel Aviv and Washington alike as a significant signal. If Israel's most reliable Republican advocate in the Senate is calling for accelerated reduction of military aid, the political floor beneath Israel's position in Washington has moved considerably. Netanyahu recognized long ago that the Democratic Party was shifting. Rather than contend with it, he chose to openly align Israel with the Republicans, thereby helping to sharpen the partisan divide. Republican support seemed like a sure thing. Israel could count on neoconservatives inside the Beltway and evangelical Christians everywhere else for unwavering support. Today, Republican voters remain far friendlier to Israel than Democrats or independents, but less so than a few years ago. The strategic miscalculation was placing all of Israel's political capital inside one party, and then watching that party itself fracture over the very wars that Netanyahu needed American support to sustain. Even among young evangelicals, what used to be a bedrock source of American affection for Israel is fast evaporating. In 2018, 68.9% of evangelicals under the age of 30 supported Israel. That number has declined sharply, representing the erosion of a constituency that Israel's diplomatic establishment long considered immune to the broader shifts in American opinion. It appears that Republicans may lose their current majority in the House of Representatives in the midterm elections of November 2026. If that happens, it will be very difficult for Trump and his administration to advance legislation, including foreign aid. Israel will then be in dire need of bipartisan support. The strategic trap is now visible to everyone. Netanyahu's gamble on Republican loyalty has left Israel without a fallback position at the precise moment when Republican loyalty itself is becoming unreliable. What is unfolding is not a sudden rupture, but the final, visible stage of a years-long erosion. The images from Gaza, the costs of the Iran conflict, the rise of an America First doctrine that is genuinely hostile to foreign military commitments, these forces did not appear overnight. They built quietly, accumulated steadily, and have now crossed the threshold into mainstream Republican politics. The alliance between Washington and Tel Aviv is not broken, but the unconditional, bipartisan, beyond question nature of that alliance The version that Netanyahu built his entire foreign policy around is gone, and no amount of political maneuvering is likely to bring it back.